Okay, so tell the people, Devin, where were you?
Peter, I want you to know the prodigious sacrifices that I make for this podcast. I woke up nary 15 minutes ago to your phone call, and I am out of coffee at the house.
Oh no.
Oh, yes. Do you know what this is?
It looks like coffee.
It it's a simulacra of coffee. I'm drinking instant coffee this morning for
Oh,
you
okay, okay.
and for our faithful listeners, dude. I've made the ultimate sacrifice.
The coffee is fake, but the caffeine hopefully is real. So
But it's minimal. It tastes like watered down chai.
oh,
I
that's no
was
good.
I was sleeping. I was sleeping, and you graciously gave me a phone call as you always do because you know that I'm I'm an unreliable shad.
I miss the days when I could sleep in. I've been up since like 6 a.m. It's been we've done French toast, we've like gone out to coffee, we've done like the whole thing, but
Oh
here
my!
we are. And I guess man, maybe right before we jump into the chaos of our age, maybe we should talk about something light for a minute. Is there anything light happening in the world or in life? I see you dropping new tunes on the Instagrams, which is kind of fun.
Oh, oh, you know, it's so funny though. It's about the song is about like death and suicide.
Yeah. Well, that the video that you sent
Not
to
that light.
me was it was beautiful anyway, like the
Oh,
video itself.
very David Lynch.
Very.
Very David Lynch. I've been told, which is funny because I've never seen anything David Lynch has done. Not a David Lynch fan myself. Love his thoughts on creativity, et cetera, but have never seen a single frame of anything he's ever made. But everybody's like, wow, it's so David Lynch inspired. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right,
That's so
okay,
funny.
nice. Yeah, I'm dropping a tune on March 10th. And the goal is the 10th of every month, like a fucking hammer falling on a nail, baby.
Nice.
Uh,
I like that.
yeah, and you know, I've been in creative mode for the last couple of years, and now I'm really in release mode. You know, I'm really like working on. I've got 13 tunes this year that I'll be putting out, and so a record in the summer and 8 singles, and I'm just kind of trying to be a good boy this time. You know, it kind of bookends with it kind of unlike some people we know who just make music and then forget about it. But I'm determined not to do that. I would really like to do my due diligence and, you know, actually finish the process. Because, like, the follow through swing now of being a musician is doing the marketing and the social media push and, you know, the music video and all of the things that are kind of like component to the marketing process.
Mhm.
So, you know, it bookends with this podcast because it's not like it didn't grow for nothing. You know, you've put marketing energy into it. I haven't actually put that much into it, but you know, it's something that we talk about and think about on this podcast because if you're doing a media thing, you have to think about, yeah, the marketing follow through and how do you reach the audience that you're trying to get to. So this year for me is less about being creative and more about being, I don't even know what not entrepreneurial either. I'm like, what would you even call it? Like,
Well, I know that for myself, and we've talked about this before, probably even on the podcast, is that I think that 2025 is going to be the year where I take things out into the real world more. And so
yeah.
for Jokes Review specifically, we've already got 2 live events booked, and we've got another
Oh,
one coming up after that that's not officially booked yet. So we're going to be doing like a lot of, sitting down and like hanging out with the people,
are you guys
and
doing?
like selling hard copies of books at tables with other real human beings sitting there, not just like tweeting about like, hey, we have a new book out type of thing. So I'm excited about that. Actually, this Friday, March 7th in Sacramento, California, if anyone happens to be around, we're going to be at the Art Loft First Friday event with a little booth, and we're going to be
Oh,
selling books and very cool artwork, actually, like prints by
books, guys. You remember those?
yeah, books, guys. Yeah. So as the world falls apart, very cool artsy things are happening and community is coming
What
together.
else you do? What else are you gonna do? Are you gonna be one of these people that's like running around like their heads on fire? No, no,
No,
you gotta make cool shit, man. That's the
make
only
cool
way
shit.
out.
Yeah.
It's the only way out, you know.
Yeah.
In the darkest
Yeah.
time, brightest flowers, or something like
I
that.
actually think all the time about like Russians, like the Russian people. One,
Mm,
because I know a lot of Russian people like in my personal life, but also I grew up
right,
reading
right,
all the Russians.
yeah.
And I feel so kind of like deeply bad that I do this kind of like online thing of like being an anti-Russian person. But it
Mm-hmm.
is like, dude, Russian culture is cool. Like I mean, everything about it is cool aside from the political apparatus that happens to be doing evil in the world, leading to the deaths of a couple thousand people per day, because of what they're doing with their government. And you do at some level have to separate the people from, I mean, this is just like an obvious ass thing. Like, I don't need to say this, but I feel this more now that Trump is back in office because it's so, man, when people talk about like America as if like it's Trump's America,
Right.
I didn't vote for the guy. I don't like the guy. I have no association with his movement. And so I feel that same way for people in Russia, So kind of like, I'm sure so many people there are just like totally good people, totally like putting out art or whatever they're doing, like just being awesome humans. And it's
Uh,
unfortunate, like the whole government thing, the whole state apparatus thing that we associate our identities with. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate. I don't know.
I mean, it's crazy because like I have that reflection often about Africa, where I'm just
Mm,
like, as a musician, I'm just like, bro, when Africa like exhumes itself from poverty, or when the global colonial powers stop stuffing it into the gimp box, it's gonna be like the people there are so smart, they're so joyful, they're so good at music. I mean, it's like you can't paint with a broad brush. Of course, there's people that like work at fast food restaurants and shit like that and don't do anything else, but it's crazy.
and how
And
dare they?
I know those fucking cats. No, but I think it's true. It's like the creative spirit of humans is like it's not indomitable because it's often dominated by governmental superstructures. But man, when released and made free, like this country's got a lot of problems, and we've got a lot of it goes back and forth. It's a bit of whiplash because we have such short term limits for things. But honestly, man, like Karen and I were talking about it the other day. It's like, dude, the amount of dope shit that's come out of this country in the last 100 years almost eclipses like the amount of dope shit that's come out of anywhere else in any other time period, maybe with the exception of Italy and the Renaissance or something like that. But even then, I mean, like we're like jazz, rock and roll, modern medicine. We're fucking like it's pretty amazing what happens when the human spirit is unbridled and freedom, maybe a little too much freedom, is I don't know, given to people in a functional way. Like you see it in a huge blossoming of creativity and innovation. It is a shame. I was having a conversation with a Russian gentleman a couple months back. We were renovating a wine shop. He's very educated, and he was very like, yeah, he's like, man, Russian culture is insane. He's like, the arts are so prioritized there. It's held up as something extremely important to do with your life, and it's taken extremely seriously. It seems like they
Mm.
really have a work ethic towards art that spread across the entire globe. A lot of our dance and acting still, like core tenets of dance and core tenets of acting come from the Russian schools of dance and acting still to this
There
day.
was recently am I frozen, by the way? My computer's being a little.
You've been popping on. You've been having a little black bloop, bloop. Yeah,
I was doing stuff. I was like tweeting links and stuff
I'm
like
doing
that.
stuff.
Yeah, I was doing stuff, but hopefully I'm back.
Hmm.
But yeah, I saw a meme recently. It wasn't a meme, just like a post on Twitter recently, and the first frame was of Russians dancing, and the second frame was of Americans dancing, the same exact song, same exact thing. And the Russians were so much better.
Oh yeah.
They just had it locked in, and we were all just kind of like, I mean, I'm sure we were amazing too, but like just by comparison, man, the Russians had that dialed in. I was like, oh, whoa, okay, they're doing
a
something here.
they're a clockwork people, man. They've got work ethic for days. You know, it's like, when will the human experience be unshackled by fucking idiots like Vladimir Putin and whoever else the fuck is stealing and suppressing the will of their people, man. It is a crime. These people are so funny. They think they're building a legacy for themselves. They're building like a criminal legacy. They're becoming ignominious. They're becoming, notorious. They think they're becoming like they're becoming saints. They're like, history is going to look at Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin uncharitably, dude.
Unless they win history, that's the whole thing, is people who win history get to write history. Although I actually don't know, like, this is a little bit of like a Michael Shermer-ism, but he always says that the moral arc of history bends towards justice and that sort of thing. There might actually be something to that even if like America joins the axis of Russia and China and Iran, like we join up with the bad guys, even so, like in the ultimate arc of history, thousands of years from now, I think that the moral arc will bend towards judging that whole thing, that domineering badness and the trampling on the little guy and not respecting borders and just mercilessly killing people that don't need to be killed. History will judge that. So I think that you are totally right. Ultimately. Yeah.
It's really interesting to me. I mean, if you think about most of like the destructive political movements of the last 100 years, any of them perpetrated by like middle-aged people or young people? No. Right? I mean, it's like we got to have a cutoff date for when you don't get to be in power anymore, period, just as a function of your age. Because your ability to be relevant to what's happening and give a fuck about it is so the actual functional ability for you to do that is very minimal. And it feels like so much of the bullshit that we have to deal with is held over power from a previous generation. You know what I'm saying? It's like, let people from 30 to 65 innovate and run things, and like after 70, like go live a life doing something that doesn't give you functional control over the lives of young and middle-aged people. I mean, it's just, there's no reason for it. We've never done like unless it's like an emperor situation or something like that. Old people are fucking hanging. They're in the guest house. You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, Hitler was youngish. There's a couple out there that are like, charismatic leaders that have taken charge of a population. But generally, I mean, especially the gerontocracy in this fucking country, man, I'm like, whoa, you know what I mean?
I mean, look at JD Vance. JD Vance is my age.
Oh, okay, that's true. That's a good point.
He is, I don't know, the most pro-Russian, anti-Ukraine type of American you can even be. It seems like I want to psychoanalyze this just a little bit. I want to understand. Try to understand this a little bit. Right this second, as we're sitting here, I'm having a little back and forth on Twitter, with an account, like a right-wing account, and I posted like Bernie Sanders, saying that something pro Ukraine. And how, I forget what I posted, but in any case, here's the commentary was from this right-wing account. Zelensky is a dictator. And I posted back, says Russia, or hold on, let me quote myself before I said, says Russia and no other serious country. And then the response was, please, the US media was saying it before Russia invaded. Guess what? Two dictators can go to war against each other, like Stalin and Hitler. Duh. I don't even know where to begin with this. Like, everything about this is just fundamentally upside down, backwards, and insane. Like, people don't live in reality. And I think that people like JD Vance are making it easy for people to live in bizarro world where the narrative I don't even know how to step into like a mindset like that. That literally is the sky isn't blue to me. Do you
It's
understand where this comes from, like at all?
I mean, the only thing that I can kind of draw as a point of reference is that it feels like somebody is hearing something from a source that they believe and back engineering the justification for it, because you can kind of do that with anything. It's like you can kind of contort yourself into any shape to fit the narrative that is most comfortable to you. I mean, that's something that
Yeah.
we're, as humans, we're just very, very good at, and to our detriment mostly, because that was
You
just
just
like,
have to know nothing about history and nothing about Russia and what they do. Like if you look through history of Europe, Eastern Europe, and just that region, it's a history of Russia conquering its neighbors,
yeah.
like Finland and everybody. Like they go in and they conquer all
Well,
of their
I mean,
neighbors, and then they lose them, and they conquer again. That is the history of that region, and Russia is always the aggressor. Maybe
always.
not always, I'm sure that others have started some stuff. Germany certainly did, but do we know what we're talking about? Do we know who
No,
Vladimir Putin is and what he wants and what he said for decades it wants, was just like to reunite the USSR, that sort of thing? Like, you
no.
just have to ignore
I
every
think
basic fact.
I know, but I think unfortunately we're in a world now where the average person can believe that they're politically informed without any kind of backbone and political philosophy, any real kind of bellwether to what's actually happening, because we're so inundated with information all the time. Quite frankly, dumbass people have the tendency to believe that they are educated and informed. And like, I would consider myself to some degree a dumbass person that believes they're educated and informed. I actually am educated and informed, but I think still, like, you have to titrate your self perception of how much you know with how
Mhm.
much you know that you can't know at the moment. However, man, there's so many people in the middle of the country that 50 years ago would have probably gladly told you that they don't know shit about politics and it's not important to them. And now, just like everybody's supposed to be an entrepreneur in the United States, everybody's supposed to have an informed political opinion about
Mm.
about geopolitical events, right? Like, it's not just it's not local or regional or national stuff. It's like everybody is in some degree expected to weigh in and have some opinion on geopolitical events. And it's just like, hey man, not everybody's built for that level of cognitive engagement, just quite frankly, and nor should everyone be.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, totally. What bugs me though, more than anything, even that doesn't even really bug me.
Mm,
What bugs me is just that whatever Donald Trump says, whatever he pivots to, automatically his followers just like go right along with him.
I
This account that
know.
I'm chatting with on Twitter, guaranteed, if tomorrow Trump and JD Vance were like just did a double take on their perspective about like, and just said, Putin is the devil, let's be totally clear, and
Yeah,
Zelensky is a great leader of a democratic nation in Europe and they should be part of NATO, and etc. They just started saying the opposite of what they're saying.
yeah,
This account would say that, like, you'd be parroting Donald Trump in that
yeah.
world too, and that's what bugs me. Like, I don't like that. I just have zero respect for.
But I also think like we're in a world where people are very fatigued, man. I
Mm,
think people are very fatigued by the expectation to know so much. And I think that one of the
mhm.
reasons why tough and certain men rule the world still is because as life is becoming more and more complex and is growing in layers of complexity and responsibility and like all of these kind of knowledge bases that you're expected to pull from when you literally just live like a normal daily life. I think everybody is looking for some guidance. And when you're kind of like a hand-wringing Democrat where you're like, well, I feel like we should, kind of push it in this direction because that's kind of the best thing to do. That's already too kind of waffly, I think, for the
Mm.
average person that just wants to get married to a politician and not have to think about fucking it's like you get married, you were the girl for a long time. You don't have to, every time you walk into a room, you're not scanning the room for like the pretty girls anymore. You're just kind of like you get to kind of take that top line thought process off your mind. And I think that a lot of people are in that vein with Donald Trump in politics right now, where they're just like, I like this guy. He's colloquial. He seems like he's a fighter. He's a business guy. It's like all of the writ large stuff. They're like, I can get on board with this guy as like a persona, or as a, as a really as an artifice, right? Like as like a, as a tableau, you know what I'm saying? And I think it allows people to really just kind of turn off that part of the critical thinking that most people just don't have the spare room for, man. Most people aren't
Mhm.
built to have that level of cognitive engagement with reality. That's a very collegiate, it's like, it's a very collegiate thing to be like, well, you know the history of Russia, right? I'm like, well, yeah, I do. You know what I mean? But like the guy that you're arguing with, he's probably a roofer.
Mhm.
He's probably like an electrician in like Minnesota or something. You know what I mean? Like it, or maybe not, or maybe he could be like a pundit, a personal pundit or something like that. But I don't know. What do you think
A little
about
bit
that?
of, there's some right-wing troll-ishness happening with this particular account. I think that's partly the
Yeah,
vibe I get to. But
could be a
yeah,
fucking Russian bot.
he's not actually. He has a podcast. I know who he is, just like a little bit. So, but I mean, this is actually an interesting thing to me, is that I do have close friends, like actually close friends, who I don't know 100% where they stand on Ukraine, Russia, just to stick with this. But
Hmm.
if anything negative is said about Zelensky or Ukraine, they get excuse me, they get animated about that, and they get excited. And if anything negative is said about Putin, they get kind of like, they become willing to stand up for Putin.
Oh,
And I just do not understand that perspective. I mean, like, where do those instincts even come from? I mean,
I'm
it
with you there.
I actually think it might come straight from Russian propaganda.
Yeah,
There are accounts, I mean, Tim Pool and that other like list of accounts that are still going like hard anti-Ukraine. They literally got tons of money
yeah,
from Russia. And and people who listen to them, people who listen to Jimmy Dore, and
yeah.
that whole crowd, I could see them. You just start parodying the opinions of the people you listen to, right? So, but like, dude, don't listen to accounts that got money from Russia. Like, if any of the people that I listen to, I find out they got money from Russia, like I'm cutting them out. I'm not listening to them anymore. Like,
You
the
know,
Russia propaganda machine is very robust, and they're good at
yeah,
this, guys. So, like,
yeah,
you have to be mindful of the fact that anything that seems pro-Russian, it might be a meme that they put there intentionally. And
yeah.
that's like where you start. And you have to start there, just like knowing that's what they do and like that they're great at it. So be suspicious. Absolutely be suspicious.
I also don't understand where these instincts come from, because if republicanism is what it says it is, and it's kind of like isolationist and protectionist, and and it's really trying to defend like an American ideal for us, by us, whatever the fuck. And then liberalism, neoliberalism, the Democratic Party is about being inclusive and everybody's a special person and they all deserve respect and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, stay on those fucking sides then, guys,
Mm.
because like, yeah, it's okay that we have a party that's like, hey man, like Russians are people too. We can't be believing everything we hear about them, blah blah blah. Not everyone's our enemy. We actually do still need a party that goes, you guys are our enemies and we're not doing business with you and we're not dealing with you. I mean, like, we've gotten too comfortable with the idea of like dictatorship and communism. I'm like philosophically, socialism and communism, fantastic, like component ideas to bring into a republic. But functionally, like the communist dictatorships of fucking China and Russia, like why are we so okay with that all of a sudden? Like
Mhm.
Putin's a person all of a sudden. I'm like, no, what 20 years ago we fucking went in and we yanked Saddam Hussein out of a fucking hole in the ground, because he was a dictator. You know, we like staged a ground war to go in, and because dictatorship is something that since, I mean, really since Hitler, but even before that, is something that the entire world has said, we don't fucking allow this to happen. And because it's now shrouded in the guise of an electoral system, which is obviously rigged, just because this person doesn't call themselves a fucking dictator, we're okay with taking information from them. We're okay with taking immigrants from those countries. We're okay with owing a bunch of debt to these countries. I'm like, that is fucking nuts to me. Like, I guess I am a real like white American or something like that. That's like, no, this is America and we do have enemies because there's people perpetrating evil out in the world and there's no reason for us to be treating them kindly. There's no fucking reason. They're weak. They're weak countries to begin with. I mean, China is a powerful country by certain metrics, and Russia is like literally not even as important as most US states, you know,
Oh, I know. Yeah.
geopolitically, financially, power wise. You know, it's like California wields orders of magnitude more geopolitical power than Russia. You know, it's like,
Yeah, I wanted to hopefully you can see my screen here. I wanted to read this tweet from Ian Brimmer from 6 hours ago. He tweeted, "If I were a foreign adversary of the United States, core policies I would support: 1, leaving NATO and the UN; 2, shutting down foreign aid; 3, dismantling the professional US bureaucracy; 4, removing safeguards for epidemics and disease."
right.
This is exactly what the Trump administration plus Elon, this is what they're doing. Like, they're
Right.
going down the list of things that our adversaries would like us to do.
100%.
And the other day, Peter Zion, who I like, political,
Me too.
geopolitical analyst, he went down a list of things that he would do if he were Trump or in the Trump administration. And it was all basically the opposite of this list of that Ian Brimmer has put here, which is kind of interesting. There's definitely like parallel thinking between these two in this regard. And so Peter Zion was saying that, like, right now, Russia is very weak. They're very weakened. So is Iran, and China is also looking ahead to a demographic collapse in the next decade. They're very weak and vulnerable in a lot of different ways. So this is the time, this 4-year period that Trump has, this is the time to really strengthen our allies and to box in our adversaries and to make it so that they do not get to tell the story of the next century.
Yeah.
We're doing the opposite. We are pulling back. We are weakening our allies and weakening the institutions upheld by our allies, weakening ourselves. And we're letting Russia and our adversaries write history, write world global history in our stead and in our place, and we're just like signing off with like their vision of the world going forward.
It's absolutely bizarre.
It's not good. It's not good at all. And just like, this is one more thing, not quite entirely related, but it's up on my screen, so let me just say it. I hate the fact that everyone in the Trump administration just cannot, for the life of them, just state basic facts and just live in the real world. And so, this is a CNN thing that's on my screen. Fact check: 33 times Zelensky thanked America and the U.S. leaders. And there was that JD Vance here. Let me. I like this little meme here. JD Vance during the interview with Zelensky kept saying, "Why didn't you say thank you?" And I mean, obviously, like, Zelensky has said thank you a million times. Also, it was Biden who has given him all the aid, not Trump. So, like, what is he saying thank you for anyway? Sorry, wrong link here.
And also, like, this is a conflict that we didn't instigate, but we fully, like, as soon as we saw it happening, we were like, hey, you want a bunch of sick weapons to fucking fight this country back with? I mean, like, it's not like we were just kind of sitting and watching this play out. Like, we dumped billions and billions of dollars of the highest tech weapons on planet Earth into the hands of this teeny little country to fight one of our enemies with. We used them as a proxy state,
Here's JD. You have to say please and thank you, Mr. Zelensky, or whatever.
Just the shit
Mr.
that
Ozinski.
the shit these people are on, man. But you know what? You know what I hope the Democratic Party takes from this is that you do have to talk to the American people like fourth graders. You have to. This is the mean average of like the American intellectual capacity. And it doesn't mean that everybody's an idiot. It means that like Republicanism has learned a very stiff lesson and they've gotten it pretty quick. And I think Bush too. I think Bush Jr. was kind of the herald of this era of the kind of like colloquial fourth grade English, we're just trying to, get after them kind of energy. And it's like, it doesn't actually matter what you're doing. But Democrats have this horrible tendency of over explaining themselves and thinking that people are listening, and it's like, look, man, we all kind of understand that we don't have a lot of insight into the backdoor dealings of the political system. Your main job as a top level politician is to say things people understand. And they've gotten the brief. Unfortunately, Republicans have gotten the brief.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you predictive-ish question.
Yeah.
Or I'm not sure how to frame it exactly, but we have Tulsi Gabbard that is being praised by Russia Today nonstop as like, oh, Tulsi's awesome. Like they tweet that nonstop. Literally, they say that like Tulsi's amazing.
Damn.
We have JD Vance and Trump and Elon, who all have, I mean, Trump has business interests in Russia, or he did have like a lot of them.
Sure.
Who knows how deep those ties go? We have JD, who just like parrots anything that owns the libs and is kind of like pro-authoritarian.
Right.
And then there's Musk, who is just like, he will never say a bad word about China ever. Right. And apparently never says anything bad about Putin either, for whatever reason. Okay, so we got this crowd of people, plus others in the administration who just like Trump bootlickers go along with all. How bad is this, Devin? Like, I know that we're pulling back from the world and we're giving up like the narrative for like global hegemony and everything, but how bad is this? Are we going to be, are we the bad guys?
I don't, Peter, it's funny because I think it's kind of a moot point because we're still like the largest, most badass, most psycho country. And it just doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, until something functionally cripples our military or political or social system, which nothing really has been able to. I mean, the pandemic couldn't even fucking touch American power, and it killed a bunch of people and scared the shit out of everybody. And what happened? Government gave everybody a bunch of money and made it work. You know what I'm saying? And like, I think that the adversarial relationship that we have to China and Russia is like, it's a war game. It's not a hot war. It's not even a cold war because we're just not even playing on the same level of power, the same level of influence. They're using soft power. They're using kind of, manipulative backdoor stuff to try to subtly weaken the United States. But we still live in a world where physical strength actually controls the map. And like the United States, just until another country becomes, has 100 years of uninterrupted industrialization and exhumes 97% of its people out of poverty, there's just nobody that's going to be able to compete with us on a global scale in any dimension, unless
Well, I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm worried about like practical things in terms of, okay, so
the economy.
Let's just take Russia and China. Like,
yeah.
Oh, I mean, our economy is fucked as long as Trump's in office and keeps doing this tariff thing. Like, it's just not like it's not going to be good. I think that's a given.
Yeah.
And he's that's sidebar. But I'm very unimpressed with Trump's economic policy so far. I'll put it that way. And I'm willing to give him so many bones on that. I'm so like down to like go with him down those rabbit holes.
I know. Come on, business guy.
He's failing at everything I'd want him to do. But like Russia wants to topple Europe. like full stop. Like he is Napoleon, he's Caesar, he's Hitler. Like he wants to topple Europe, and there's no like ifs, ands, or buts about that. That's what he wants, right? At some level, he wants the USSR, but like he ain't stopping there, right? Like
That's like a child. It's like a child trying to break into like a bank, or like, you know what I mean? Like there's just what multiverse does Russia have? They can't even fucking beat Ukraine.
Well, this was his world, because apparently he's badly informed, right? Because like he doesn't, like his generals don't tell him the true information because they might get like killed, thrown out a window, sort of thing. So he thought that he was going to topple Ukraine and march into Kyiv and like take it over in 3 days, and then like put in a puppet leader there. That's what he thought. So like he's not operating on like a basis of reality, I don't think. But that's what he wants, right? And then and they have a lot of interest in Northern Africa, that they want to be able to control all of the mines in Africa, and they want to kick the French out and kick the US out. So they have like global ambitions for like raw resources and raw power. Same thing with China. They want to take over Taiwan, and they have interest in Southeast Asia, and I'm sure beyond that. And they also have interests in Africa. And they have, spies all up and down our government, probably every government in the world, right? Like they have a vision for how humanity should be run, and it's very anti-democratic, like super hardcore authoritarian, zero free speech. I mean, like it's a version of our values fundamentally.
Yeah.
And human by human, person by person, they, like Russia and China, want to make more people like believe in those values, which are contrary to our values. So like I think that any encroachment that they do on any of those levels, any of those playing fields, it's bad for the future of freedom in humanity. Good for the future of like authoritarians and anti-freedom.
See, I don't know that we're going to go back. I think we're still in a holdover mentality from World War II. When that generation of people dies off, I really do think that the world becomes a gentler place. Because
I hope you're right, Devin. I hope
no,
you're
I
right.
really
I
do.
talked to a guy yesterday who's I haven't dropped his episode yet, but he has his whole theory. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but let me, since it's here. He has this theory that we're going to start in this like generation, start losing our egos a little bit more and having more connection with like a global consciousness. It's so beautiful of an idea. I don't really want to like pick at it too much, but like I'm not seeing it happening, but I love that. Maybe that's kind of what you're saying too, that like this generation let them die off, and then
I see it happening because I'm surrounded by young people, and I try to make sure that that's the case. I don't know. It's just kind of like, as an artist, I think it's something important for me to do. And I see that, I mean, good Lord, dude, like the likelihood that you're going to get called a faggot in public is so low now. And 20 years ago, it was happening to me like on a weekly basis, like fights. I almost never see fights anymore. Like physical and emotional violence are becoming very like, they're becoming very taboo. And unless you're in the middle of the country in a farm town, like the roughness of there just isn't a lot of roughness to life anymore. It's a lot of feigned roughness. It's like the rancher drives an F-350 with climate control and Bluetooth. Like everybody that's living in a city is living pretty comfortable. And far beyond that, like, we talk about like poverty in this country and stuff, but I'm like, everybody's got a fucking smartphone.
Wait,
like,
hold on. I want to articulate this a little bit, because this is interesting. This is maybe just like an actual theory for how we could become like anti-egoic or whatever. Life becomes softer. We just become more feminized and more soft and pampered,
gentle,
just by the world and our day-to-day lives. And that makes us more gentle, and that maybe makes us less macho egocentric. Is that, this could be like, this is testable. This is like a testable theory. I like this.
In my anecdotal experience, it's inarguable that is the direction that like, and like we said, we were talking about in the last one, like this like utopian experiment of neoliberalism and how it's failed. Well, it doesn't, the most extreme version of it has failed. The all of the kind of low-lying common sense things that were core to the neoliberal fantasy, like a lot of that stuff is actually just in practice now. Like we do have a lot of inclusive behaviors. We do like we have marched towards stamping out racism and sexism. We are trying to create an actual equity and equality between genders. We are like a lot of that stuff is happening, and there's people fighting at the tip of the spear, but the post of the base of the spear is still thrusting forward to bring people up into the light. And that's something that this country has been faithful about. I mean, given, a lot of the time when people are brought up into the middle class or brought up into a more intellectually or emotionally wealthy existence for themselves, they're shackled by something else in that space, like pharmaceuticals or like poison in the food, or like the environmental or like an environmental degradation that's causing cancer in a community or something like that. But we're talking about you're in a higher order of existence now, where you have nobody's really threatening you with physical violence. You have access to basically every piece of information humans have ever gathered. And like most people have economic freedom, whether they think so or not. I mean, like if
Okay,
you're
hold on. Let me simply. I just want to jump in with.
please.
Okay, so this is interesting. Okay, we've been talking a lot about Russia and China. So
Yeah.
Russia, 1/3 of Russians still don't have like running water.
Right.
And they go to war all the time. They're always invading their neighbors
Right.
and do like doing boots on ground stuff. China has lifted more people out of poverty than any generate or any country ever in like the quickest time ever. They all live
Right.
in cities and like they live somewhat comfortably, as from what I understand.
Yeah.
China never goes to war. Like we talk about it all the time, and they might want to invade Taiwan maybe, but like who knows what's going to happen there. Their track record again is just like not going to war. What they do is they do soft power stuff like building
Yeah.
bridges in poor countries.
Yep. Yep.
So if you just take China and Russia there, I know that they both are kind of like nefarious in terms of like American interests, but like China's on that path of they are like living in more of a softer life, and they're not. I don't know enough about any of this, but I like this parallel here.
And like I think that we forget that the Chinese political system is only 70 years old, right?
Yeah.
Like China was a democracy like really, really short time ago. And like I think have gotten used to the
I mean,
idea.
were they ever properly, because the democratic wing of them fled to Taiwan, and that's why Taiwan is a democracy and China is not, because like they lost that war, and then the dictatorship type thing, the communist one. So was China mainland China proper ever democracy?
Not in a Republican sense, but I think of them in the same way that I think of a place like Iran, where like they enjoyed a time that was free, that wasn't really encumbered by, and like where normal people were able to live a life that is in that shared a proximity to the freedom that we enjoy as a democratic republic here for a short amount of time. And even though the political system has been dominated by communism and by like dictatorship, for the last 70 years, I mean, this is still a population that rose up, right? Like this is still
I mean, like there are all those different cities along the coast that were, I mean, Hong Kong and everything that had a lot of Western influence, like founded by the British and stuff like that. And a lot of them, up until just a couple of years ago, were somewhat autonomous from Beijing. And I think like to this day, I'm pretty sure a lot of those like cities in southern China, they still look at themselves as somewhat autonomous from Beijing, and they want to be more democratic. And there's a lot of that like deep in some of those pockets of China, from what I understand. I am so far out of my depth here, though, that I don't know.
A little bit.
I probably shouldn't be talking.
A little bit me too, but we know enough about enough. I mean, like I think that also the sentiment of Chinese people I think broadly is that they are feeling whiplash from the
Mm,
ham-fisted kind of policies of their government. Because you take something like the one child policy, where for decades and decades they were like, oh, one kid, there's too many people, which is one dude. It's like one dude's harebrained fucking scheme to like control the population or whatever. Stupid, absolutely insane. Now the same women that they were basically ruining their lives, making them pay tens of thousands of dollars for having a second or a third child, they're now calling these women on the phone, local political representatives calling these women on the phone and saying, hey, wouldn't you love to have an extra child? And you're just like, bro, this is French Revolution shit, dude. Like, you
yeah, that is
can
insane.
fuck with people a lot, but as soon as people start feeling the whiplash of somebody's personal decision making apparatus being kind of like uh irrelevant to the lives of normal people, like people actually don't take that forever, man. And I think that
Oh yeah, totally. The
the
human spirit doesn't thrive yeah. Hmm.
no, and the human spirit is indomitable. It just
Hmm.
takes
Yep.
time sometimes. And I think that Russians have the benefit of having a really strong identity that's kind of ancient and based around cultural things. And China has that too, right? Like China's like, arguably the most ancient culture. But I feel like the way in which I feel the way in which their political system is seeking to control all aspects of their life and is authoritarianism, and is authoritarian and is like a techno state that's using AI and is using cameras and is like a privacy. There's no privacy there. You can't talk about stuff. There's no free internet. I mean, it's like you can be the Mormon kid on the block that isn't allowed to eat cereal. You're gonna eat cereal as soon as you go over your friend's house. You know what I mean? I'm like,
That's
they
actually a
can
good way to
see
look at that. You're right.
they can see what's going on with the rest of the world. I just talked with a mainland Chinese person when I was in Nashville who was an
Mm.
artist and kind of a dissident. And I was like, just really curiously kind of picking his brain on all this stuff. And he was like, I was like, why do you think 30,000 Chinese people came here last year? Me, I'm like fucking like,
Oh, interesting. Mm.
I'm like, I'm like, I'm listening for the code word. You know what I'm saying? Because I think that a lot of those people were sent here by the Chinese government, but I don't know. That's a conspiracy theory, truly. But he was like, it's just really bad there right now. He's like, it's just
Mm.
really bad. He's like, you don't have freedom. Like, he's like, I just had a friend of mine taken to jail for using Facebook, and
Whoa.
like,
Oof.
it's like people know like family members and shit who are doing like normal people behaviors and getting like taken away by the Gestapo. You know what I'm saying? And like that type of power, you don't get to hold on to that forever. No, there's no country, no culture, no political system that survived in that type of environment for very long at all in the scope
You
of
know,
history.
you know what's so weird about that example, Devin, is that even Europe is totally doing that sort of thing right now. Like Germany has all these laws on the books about how if you say certain things online, you go to jail.
Right,
And I mean, even England basically has that sort of a thing.
right,
And it's
right.
a lot of like normal stuff
Yeah,
that you just can't say online, or like
right.
literally police knock on your door, which to Americans is just like crazy.
Unreal.
And this is why the right wing RFD party or whatever it is in Germany,
Right.
has grown so exponentially recently and almost, came into power over this last election cycle. People do not like that. And like, man, just hearing those stories makes me be all JD Vancey and like pro that party, because it's like that is just not okay. And I think that JD Vance and Elon and those folks are total hypocrites when it comes to free speech. But man, like that's a thing we got to push back on and shame the hell out of Europe for doing that sort of stuff, because it's bad. It's just not good.
It's crazy. It's like we're doing something that works here, and it's ugly and it's messy and it's not the sexiest thing to a homogenous country with like a shared cultural history. We don't have that here. We don't try to we I think the point of the American I think at the moment the point of the American experiment is how strong and wide can we make the bumpers on existence to where it allows for the most ability to the most slop in between,
Hmm.
and then when it hits a wall, it stops. And it's like that is how this country works. It's we have so many laws that protect people's physical safety. We have very few laws that protect people's intellectual, emotional reality,
Mhm.
identity, or any of that stuff. And it's like, I love that about this country. I think, unfortunately, we still don't live in a beautiful, gentle world where there's no assholes and nobody's going to say mean things to you. And it's like, well, I don't know. Tell your spirit to get born in a different time next time, because that's just the world we live in. And this country does protect your physical safety mostly, most of the time, for most people. And it's getting better at that as we go on. Certainly certain groups have been left out and certain groups have been not protected historically, but we're moving towards a reality in which that's not true. And like every other country that tries to tightly, every other country that's policing people's morality,
Mhm.
policing people's intellectual safety or their emotional safety, and like that's a futile mission. You're never going to make everybody feel safe and happy. And we know that because the neoliberal experiment fucking failed. It doesn't work, man, because as soon as you tell somebody, hey, we're going to validate your existence, they go, well, I've got these second and third order things that I'd like validated too. It's like, we're going to say that like you are whoever you say you are. And they're like, well, I also would like to be treated nicely. And it's like, well, fuck off. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not how it works yet. I don't know what to fucking tell you. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm disappointed in the Trump administration. Maybe just one last time to go back to it, just
Yeah.
because I think that they really could have been, or they could have done a lot of good in the world being pro free speech, but
Yeah.
instead the way that they're doing it, they're just ostracizing our allies, and it's just not good. And there's just so much hypocrisy on their side too, that I don't think anybody who pays attention can and should take them seriously. So I mean, for example, like Elon Musk on Twitter, he's just dialing back community notes because he said that community notes were taken over by or overly influenced by foreign governments. And he said that just because he kept getting community noted, because he
Right.
kept saying dumb, false shit. And so there would
Right.
be community note like, no, actually, like the sky is blue, Elon. You know what I mean? It'd be that level of like obviousness.
Totally.
And so he dialed back community notes so that he personally wouldn't be. And that is, I'm like, sorry, that's like not that ruins your whole project of being like, oh, you're for like the truth coming out, etc. And I don't know,
Well,
it's
but I
so
think
gross.
that's an important distinction to draw, is that free speech isn't about the truth, right? It's not. It's just about free speech. It's about saying whatever the fuck you want to say. And like, I
Free
think a lot.
speech on a platform though, and because we're supposed to be able to correct. This is what free speech advocates always say, is that from everyone having their perspective, that's how the truth will come out. And that's what community notes was supposed to be. It's an aggregate of people who aren't, necessarily aligned with whoever's saying anything. It's an aggregate of them like commenting, and other people like check it. And then it's like, through the community, through all the voices, the truth will come out. Yes, everyone gets to see what they want, but like at some level, part of that process is like not stamping down voices you don't like. And that's what
Yeah.
Elon is doing. He is stamping down voices he does not like. And that's
Right.
anti-free speech.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I just have such a muddled view of what apps have anything to do with any of this, where I'm just like,
Oh, kind of nothing. I only bring up
I
Elon
mean,
and Twitter just because he's supposed to be Mr. Free Speech, and he just
right.
stamps down speech he doesn't like. Like he puts his boot on speech he doesn't like, him personally.
I
And
mean,
so he just can't be taken seriously, I think, on that topic.
I think so too. I'm like, yeah, the whole like, I don't know, like the way that we're having this hybrid moment where we're asking private companies to regulate themselves, where I'm just like, again, like, not really the way the system works. You know what I'm saying? It's like the system is built a very specific way. It's exploitative. It's generally trying to protect the core values of things that we consider to be important. And then as soon as we start getting into second and third order kind of like removals from those like physical core tenets, where we're saying like, oh, well, there's this new technology. And I'm like, well, then you lost me there, because we just don't, how do we, what are we talking about? Free speech. It's like, if you own a business, you can tell people to say whatever the fuck you want. Like you can't, like,
to be clear, I totally agree. I think any platform can set their own rules and do whatever they want. And I totally am on board with that.
Right.
Elon can do whatever he wants. I just don't think that he can, with a straight face, say I'm a straight free speech absolutist, and then like only allow speech that makes him look good. You know, I just think that
100%.
him personally, that makes him a hypocrite. But platform wise, totally go for it, Elon. Do whatever the hell you want on your platform. Just like don't pretend to be upholding some value when you're absolutely blatantly not. You know. So anyway,
I completely agree with that, and I think we're in this moment that I really don't love, which is like just the kind of the childlikeness of our leaders at the moment to just kind of like say something and like stamp their feet about it a little bit, and then that's like, I'm like, we're in a backlash moment. You know, I'm old enough to have seen what happens when something shifts too far one way and what it feels like when there's a backlash to it. And like, we're in a backlash moment to the over intellectualization, the kind of scholastic attitude of politics. And like, we've seen this happen a lot actually in our country, where we'll have a president like Obama, and then we'll have a president like Trump, you know, where it's like somebody that's very collegiate, very well reasoned, very explicative, explanatory of what's going on and blah, blah, blah. And like, man, people just don't really fuck with that. And we need to find some kind of middle ground where we're like, you know, we don't need Elon Musk coming out in a fucking Ed Hardy outfit with a chainsaw.
Oh, you know, sideways.
Oh no. I'm like, yeah, we don't need Elon in the Ed Hardy outfit with the chainsaw. Like, I don't need everybody to wear a suit when they're a politician, but please, like, don't look like an incel 8th grader. You know what I mean? Like the backlash right now to the kind of like everybody wants to feel so much more. Yeah.
Did you see Bill Maher this week by chance?
No.
He had a thing about he was saying exactly what you're saying, that like we need authenticity in our leaders right now, and this like fake suit thing doesn't fly anymore. He said something interesting. I'm not even sure if I agree with it, but I like where he's going with this. He said that the liberal Trump, who the Democrats should nominate for the next president, is John Fetterman, because he completely just gets the common man, talks like the common man, even though he comes from money and is not the common man. He's like rich family sort of vibes. He's an elitist, but just like Trump is an elitist, and Trump can talk to the common man and like represent their values. So can John Fetterman. And I don't know, Bill Maher actually made kind of an interesting case about that. I got mixed feelings about old Fetterman, but it's that directionally, you know, would not hurt for the Democrats, I think, to open up their minds to that. I mean, what's so interesting about this is that Kamala was like so close to winning, given that she campaigned for 3 months and that no one likes her and her personality is not at all. I mean, like she just doesn't brighten up a room when she walks into it, right? By any measure, she walks into a room and everyone's kind of like, oh, like boss lady entered the room who might start yelling at people or something. You know, that's the energy she gives. It's not like, oh, let me shake Trump's hand, woohoo. You know, she's the opposite of that. So, and she almost like literally Trump won by like 1% point, or it was not a landslide by historical standards at all. And it kind of almost should have been, given who she is and that she had 3 months to campaign. And Biden fucked her so hard, setting her up. So I'm not counting out like I think a Pete Buttigieg who looks good in a suit could still win. You know what I mean? Like a button down, well-spoken Obama-esque politician could totally still win. But yeah, I think that you're right. Overall, we need authenticity, and we need someone who can.
Well, there's only like 2 more generations left of people who actually went to college, dude. Like, I mean, you really, like, our millennials kind of barely squeaked in. The generations below us don't care as much about it, and I don't think are going to invest as much
I
in
think that by the numbers, there's more people than ever graduating with college degrees.
it. Yeah, I guess, I mean, that might be true, but I guess, I mean, the salience of that type of intelligence in society feels to me
Oh, I
like
feel
it.
you. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, it just feels like it's getting lower by the day. And like, maybe
Mhm.
rightfully so. Like, I don't know that, the boomer myth of like everybody should have a college education is really functional in any
Mhm.
way. I mean, it probably should be a siloed industry, like it kind of is turning into. Like, academia is a place where people like invent stuff and think of new stuff. It doesn't, not everybody needs to spend all of that money and all that time availing themselves of like classics and the information of the world, because not everybody really cares about that shit, and it's not functional to daily life in a way. And I think that as we go further into meme culture, as we go further into the internet being the more functional, most functional part,
Robots taking over.
the robots taking over, the
Gods.
singularity, when we merge with, when the transhumanists finally
The
stage their
chip in the
takeover,
brain to connect our brains to the
humanity,
cloud.
when
Yeah.
Neuralink is actually controlling all of us via fucking remote control. Oh my God,
When we
man.
wake up from the Matrix anyway, and all this was just a dream to begin with. Yeah. No, I
Our
know.
next one needs to be a futurist podcast, because there's so many cool futurist things that are happening right now with like
Yeah.
quantum computing and transhumanism, and like, man,
Let's do
we're
that. Let's get
yeah.
back to the basics. Yeah.
I think so, man. I mean, I do love talking about politics because it is futurist and the most
Right
functional.
now it is. Yeah. I think that the fate of the world, like Western democracies, and yeah, the rise of the authoritarian. I think that like futurism is tied into this 100%. Like the future, literally, of our lives is dependent on how the winds blow in these directions. But you're right. Let's like technology also matters so much more than the average person, I think, gives it credit for.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's get back to the basics on that. I like it.
Yeah, I think next episode we'll hit the futurist angle again, but for now, I think maybe one of my closing thoughts, I got to get going soon, is that the dismantling of the federal bureaucracy is something that gives me a lot of pause, and I think is something that's been on my mind a lot over the last couple weeks, because as you know, I am maybe the only person on earth that believes that bureaucracy is an important stopgap between us and whatever like grim reality happens next. I think that the slowness and the hulkingness of the American bureaucracy is maybe one of the most important safeguards against fascism, against dictatorship, against any political party wielding any true amount of functional power over the small amount of time that their president is in power. And it has been a mirthsome exercise for me to watch Elon Musk and other people just kind of futilely, like, try to slash and burn the federal government, and just realizing that like a lot of these institutions are enshrined, right? Like you like, I love watching Elon, like the email, he's like, say 5 things you did last week, and like the head of the FBI and the head of the CIA, like they're like, no, don't fucking do that. Like, who is this guy? And like, the judiciary at the moment is really levying rulings quickly, and it'll continue to get worse for these fucking idiots that are very, very clearly stating that, well, you don't have any power to do any of this stuff, and that like
Mhm.
there is a little bit of fat here and a little bit of fat there. It's not fucking Nigeria where $1 million gets stolen at the top, and then every crumb that goes down the ladder is another grift. It's like, no, man, normal people built these systems brick by fucking brick, man. Like, of course there's a little bit of waste. Of course there's a little bit that falls off the edges. And look, good luck cutting off the fat. You're going to trim about 0.1% off the debt or the federal budget. And then you're going to find out that most of these jobs are keeping everything fucking going, man.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Let me read you this tweet. This is from
yeah.
Richard Tanania. He tweeted this today. Doge claimed credit for canceling a contract that ended in 2005. In its list of canceled transactions, the top 5 were all wrong. They had to revise savings down from 10 billion to 19 million. Just like, it's just so frustrating. It's just so frustrating that Doge itself just seems like more of a grift than an actual legitimate project to make the government more efficient. It's very, very frustrating.
It just seems like an anecdote that somebody turned into a project where they're like, there's all of this waste in the federal government, and somebody just got that into his head super strong, because he's like, well, every company I've ever gone into has all of this waste around the edges and blah blah blah. And it's like, well, yeah, because companies have to be nimble, because companies have to be able to turn on a dime, because companies have to be able to innovate and stay relevant. The government is the opposite of that. The government is supposed to be the ballast to the capitalist, to the kind of capitalist speedball. You know, like the government is the thing that holds the center slowly and calmly through time. And it's boring and it's inefficient, and it's perfect for what its job is.
Yeah, just the fact that Elon Musk cut the scientists who were stopping the next Ebola pandemic. Did you see this? Like, and then like, oh no, we screwed up, and now we need to rehire them. It's just like, you're an absolute moron who is like literally endangering humanity with your stupidity. And they accidentally cut the people who were studying bird flu right now, like the top scientists who were studying. And it's like, what are you doing? If I'm paying my tax dollars for anything, it's literally for those exact projects. Please, roads, bridges, water, no Ebola, please. Thank you.
and the Jon Stewart clip this week that went viral, where he was like, hey, you want to find some billions of dollars lying around?
Elon,
why don't you cut subsidies for the oil and gas companies that are making fucking trillions of dollars of profit?
Oh, I thought you were going to say Elon Musk, because he gets like $5 billion per year from the government. It's like, well, what's up, Elon
Musk? I mean, but it's like, fortunately, Elon Musk, for all of his foibles, is doing cool shit. He's like, taking us to, I guess, the space thing I don't give a fuck about, because like what's happening in our local extraterrestrial vicinity that we really need to keep tabs on? Fucking nothing. Like, James Webb is obviously the fucking coolest thing that's been happening in space over the last couple of years.
Let's talk about space. We might have a little daylight between us on this topic, but next time let's talk about space.
Next time space. But like like the real way that we save money in this country is by making sure that people are healthy, so that they create less drag on the medical system. It's curtailing the medical industrial complex that has completely taken over this country and has infected hundreds of millions of Americans with deadly chronic illnesses that are just getting breadcrumbed so that they can stay alive long enough that their insurance premiums can keep getting paid. I mean, like, what are we talking about? We want to talk about efficiencies in the system. It's not fucking Brenda that has who's getting paid $60,000 a year for data entry, dude. It's not Jeffrey, who's like the docent at your fucking local national park. It's fucking these giant industrial complexes that are ruining the fabric of this country and are actually exerting a financial gravity on our ability to progress as a nation.
Yeah. So it's something like just like a handful of the health issues that we have, like diabetes and a couple of those issues. In order to solve some of those problems, we need a bigger government, not a smaller government. And we need better healthcare, not worse healthcare. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're for some reason, even though their talking points are right, like RFK might have the right talking points, even Trump, like a lot of times, right talking points, we're doing the things that are leading to the wrong result, like the opposite of what they're signaling we're going towards. That's what makes me nervous. I need to drop off, I think. But Hey, we have a lot set up for next conversation. Maybe we should do like a normie pod, not a live stream.
Yep,
Next time we'll
I'm down.
talk about that. But hey, that was fun, Devin. That was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks for entertaining my my angry screeds.
I love the angry screeds. I love them. That's what I'm here for. All right.
Hell yeah.
Till next time.
Later, guys.